Who's your tailor? Well, obviously, not Alfred. Hey, what's happening, gamers? I'm K-Wing, and it's time to learn stuff while punching crime in the face. This is Arkham Wednesdays. Today is all about the Batman of Zur-En-Arhh, though mostly the Morrison version and not so much the Silver Age. Mainly because I already did that for LEGO Batman 3. Before we begin though, let me just start off by saying this skin was a royal pain in the butt to get. It took me a full workday, that's 10 hours, ladies and gentlemen, to get this skin. So I'm not a fan of the WBID system on the PS4. Though unlike Batman 1 million, obviously I was finally able to get the skin to work. But it took forever. And while I commend the great efforts of the admins on the Arkham forums, I still don't think this was a good idea to include this as a WBID thing. It should have been part of Season Pass or something else, because the ID thing never works properly, okay? And there are still people on the forums that are having problems, so yeah. But enough of my belly aching. The skin is pretty cool, and you can see it's literally held together by stitches. You're probably curious about the reading material for this video, like what comics you should read in order to understand what's going on. Now, most of these are included in the graphic novel called The Black Glove. Or you can pick up the issues separately, starting with Batman number 667 and ending with 675. Which leads into Batman R.I.P. and The Last Rites. Now, Grant Morrison has skillfully connected the pre-crisis Batman stories to the modern-day Batman. He starts with bringing back the Club of Heroes. And just so you know, it's a group of C-list Batman knockoffs, as Tim puts it. These first few issues give the reader an introduction to the Black Glove and a thrilling murder mystery to solve, too, which was pretty cool. The next 4-issue arc has the Dark Knight return to Gotham and face an evil Batman, or rather a whole bunch of Batman imposters that are bad cops, trying to frame and destroy the Batman's legacy in Gotham, along with showing how the Black Glove has been watching Bruce since he started his crime-fighting career. So kind of think of it like a Court of Owls, but pre-52 group. Batman also gets a new girlfriend, and in the final issue, she figures out Bruce Wayne is the Batman. As for Zur-En-Arhh himself, or Zur-En-Arhh, whatever you want to call him, we'll just cover the basics, okay? So Zur-En-Arhh comes from the planet Tina, something Super Planet X, whatever, which was created in 1958. In the story, Batman ends up going to this planet, meets another Batman, who's an alien, and Bruce somehow develops superpowers. Together, the Batmen defeat the robot army, and as a gift, Wayne receives the Bat Radio device. Back home in the Batcave on Earth, the Bright Knight, because that's what the Silver Age guy was like, tells Richard of his daring, superpowered exploits, and that's the last we ever see of the really freakish clown-looking Batman. In 2008, Zur-En-Arhh appeared on TV for the very first time. It was voiced by Kevin Conroy. So Batman voiced Alien Batman, which is pretty cool. Though it was a bit different than the 50s story. You just watch it for yourself. If you want more info on the Silver Age, Zur-En-Arhh, check out my lore on the Let's Play channel. But enough of the Silver Age goofiness, alright? You came here for Grant Morrison, you're gonna get Grant Morrison. In 2006, Morrison started to connect the 60s and 70s Batman history into the pre-Flashpoint DC world. But he did it in a way that actually worked and was pretty brilliant. So how Batman R.I.P. begins is issue 675, essentially. Nightwing and Robin have just beaten some dog bandits and fill the readers in on Batman's mood and journey thus far, plus brand new girlfriend, whose name is Jezebel, by the way. They also dive into how Bruce is dealing with his own personal death and coming back to life after the events of the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, which is a great story involving Damian and Tim, by the way, and it's a continuation of Batman and Son. While Bruce is kind of not alright at the moment, Tim and Dick team up to punch crime in the face, and they make a really good team, actually. On the other side of the planet, Talia and Damian learn of a plot to destroy Batman and rush to his aid, though it takes the entire book for them to arrive from point A to part B. And it's just kind of funny that they end up in the conclusion. But Bruce is basically enjoying a nice time out with his new girl, Jezebel, and she actually gets into a fight with him over commitment issues, and then the Ten-Eyed Man shows up and beats the snot out of Batman, or Bruce Wayne, who essentially looks like a really cool killer monk now. If you don't know who the Ten-Eyed Man is, he's basically a Silver Age villain who Morrison brought back, and the guy has eyes tattooed on his hand, and supposedly he can see even better with the eyes on his hand. Anyway, he captures Jez and beats up Wayne and takes them both hostage, but of course Bruce Wayne escapes because you all know he's Batman. And he teaches Ten-Eyed Man a new kind of pain. He lures the guy into a kitchen and Wayne kills the lights, then dumps boiling hot vegetable oil all over the assassin's hands, thus making him blind. Talk about brutal. Bruce then uses his Batman voice while beating up the guy and forgets that Jezebel is in the room with him, and lo and behold, she figures out he is the Batman. And actually doesn't break up with him or call the police. Pretty nice, right? The next issue opens with a picture of the dynamic duo shouting, "You're wrong, Batman and Robin will never die," which was actually foreshadowing the new dynamic duo and ensuring the reader that Batman will not end here, so just stay tuned. This is just a comic arc. Everything's gonna be fine, kids. Then the issue goes back 6 months later, showing Dr. Hurt welcoming a new member to the Black Glove. This kind of hunchback British guy or something like that. But back in Gotham, some nutjob has stolen a car and is dressed like a, I don't know, weird parrot or something like that. Apparently he's a fan of the Arkham inmates and wants to join them because they're all celebrities to the guy. Batman and Robin arrive in a brand spanking new Batmobile, though the dialogue is more relaxed between the two. This might be because of Bruce's love life or some other stuff, but Batman ends up giving homeless guy a bunch of money, and he's just in a really good mood for whatever reason. What also struck me as kind of odd is how relaxed Bruce is in this issue, especially knowing a woman is waiting for him back home. In the animated series, especially the film Mask of the Phantasm, Bruce had to give up being Batman as part of his plan so he could be with Andrea, because knowing a wife was waiting for him back home would make him lose focus, which is very deadly in the vigilante line of work. I'm not saying that Grant really didn't pull this off well, but it just felt out of place for me. Even Robin was kind of like, how many girls know that Batman and Bruce Wayne are one and the same? I mean, what happened to them? And Alfred's basically like, Robin, chill. This happens a lot, you know. I'm Bruce Wayne. This is my secret identity, you know? So, I mean, just deal with it. And Robin's just like, whatever. Joker, meanwhile, has survived being shot by Batman and is back for revenge in this book, and it's been a couple years. If you don't know what happened, during Batman and Son, a Batman shoots Joker in the face, and even though it was an imposter, Batman arrives and saves the Joker in time, but while he's walking down an alleyway covered in graffiti that says Zur-En-Arhh, a mental message begins to drive Batman crazy, up until the events of R.I.P. where we are right now. Back to our tale though. For the past couple nights, Batman is hitting the streets hard, searching for the Black Glove, though every lead goes absolutely nowhere and is driving him, well, batty. Tim is also left for a while due to Damian appearing on the scene and not being okay with that. And Batman's just like, I can't deal with my kids right now, Alfred. The Black Glove is out there and so is Dr. Hurt. So he has to find where those guys are, and he's not really gonna deal with his family at all. So, Father of the Year right there, folks. For whatever reason, Batman invites Jezebel to see the Batcave too, and is just kind of like, what? Also, Dr. Hurt arrives in Gotham and shows the Black Glove his plan to destroy Batman and make him self-destruct. At the GCPD building, a new subplot begins for the comic about Thomas Wayne still being alive, and Alfred is really Bruce Wayne's father, or something like that. Although, they really don't do much with the storyline in the Black Glove issues. It's kind of an underlining plot, and I just reread the comics again recently, and it never really continues until much, much later, probably during the Batman and Robin run with Dick and Damian. So this is just another tease for more of Morrison's later work. All you need to know about this part is Gordon really doesn't believe the mayor about this nonsense about Thomas Wayne being alive and Alfred being a dad and all this other stuff. And he leaves in a huff, basically. In the Batcave, Jezebel tells Bruce that he's kind of nuts for dressing up as a scary bat creature, And anybody with common sense would be like, yeah, we agree. Then she gets a little weird for Jezebel, because up until before this point, she doesn't really act all philosophical with him or try to pick his brain. She says, now none of your boys will ever say this, Bruce, because they don't love you like I do. But for whatever reason, she keeps repeating this phrase, Zur-En-Arhh, under her breath, saying how she's actually worried about Batman's mental state. And then she says, Bruce, I just had a terrifying thought. What if you are actually the Black Glove? And this causes Bruce to lose it even more, because she says, think about it. Who would know all your weaknesses? Who would know who you are? Who would know you love puzzles and adventure and all this other stuff? And who would hate you more than Bruce Wayne? And this just really makes Bruce really doubt things, and he's kind of like, is this true? Am I really that messed up that I would try to cause myself to self-destruct? And as he's like walking around in the Batcave trying to figure this out and remove all doubts from his mind, the Batcomputer flashes with the letters all over the place, Zur-En-Arhh, and then Batman's mind completely shatters. Behind him, the Black Glove have entered the cave and taken Jet captured. Alfred then returns from his movie, and he's like, oh no, the cave is destroyed again, just like in Batman Forever, and he's taken hostage. Bruce is then drugged, I'm not saying which drugs, and then he defeats his attackers and wanders into Gotham's slums. Although it's not really explained how it happens, he just kind of does. Elsewhere, Tim Drake has discovered a really bizarre book written by Batman during his 5-year mission as the Caped Crusader, basically telling about all his different journeys and thinking about what it's like to get in Joker's head, which, that is a very freaky book, I will say that much. Just don't mind my cat, okay? She's driving me crazy too. I don't know why she's running around, but it's really hard to concentrate. Oh! Anyway, let's see, where was I? Tim, oh yeah, the crazy book. Now, this book is actually very similar to the thing that Heath Ledger wrote about becoming the Joker and writing a diary about the Joker. So it's not something that I would advise to do. The fact that Batman is trying to get inside Joker's head is not a good thing by any means. So the fact that Tim is reading this and eating like popcorn or something is just Mondo Bizarro, okay? It's a messed up book. Before Robin can finish this book somewhere in the mountains or whatever, he's attacked by 2 members of the Black Glove and escapes on a motorcycle. Nightwing then follows up on a lead from Oracle and takes down some more hoods, and then mentions how he hasn't heard from the boss in a couple of days, but then his comms go off after he meets a female member of the Black Glove and is captured himself. Yeah, pre-52 Nightwing kind of like gets captured a lot. Similar to Arkham Knight Nightwing. Anyway, in Gotham slums, Bruce meets a homeless guy named Jackson Honors, and he's the same guy that Batman gave a few $100 to the other night, you know, because he was just being nice and smiley. Honors helps Bruce walk off his problems and kind of be his guide to getting his mind a little bit back to normal, until the following day when he learns that that dude he was following him around was a ghost. The guy died of a crack overdose with, get this, money that Batman paid for. When Bruce realizes this, he becomes a schizophrenic. His mind just unravels completely, and Zur-En-Arhh takes over, fully. Robin is then looking for Nightwing in Gotham and can't find him anywhere and is kind of freaking out. And unknown to the boy Wonder, the Black Glove has taken Dick to Arkham Asylum, where they plan on lobotomizing him and whatever. Though they can't figure out who he is. They think he's some kind of French legionnaire. Now, this is because Jason Todd, Bruce Wayne, Richard Grayson, Alfred Pennyworth, and Tim Drake have no public trace of their existence anywhere on Earth. Amazing, right? That's how paranoid Bruce Wayne is that they could learn their secret identities. I guess Bruce should have tried that in Arkham Knight, huh? Oh well. Dr. Hunt in the Batcave has basically stolen Thomas Wayne's costume by this point too, and declared Gotham is his for the taking and no one can stop him. In Crime Alley, Zur-En-Arhh Batman stalks the night along with Batmite. Yes, Batmite. He takes down various hideouts owned by the Black Glove and their weapons caches, and basically puts the hurt on them. He also talks with some stone gargoyles because he's kind of mental now. Batmite then tells Batman to remove the tracking device that Hurt placed inside his tooth, and I'm not going to describe that scene because it's Ugh. Batman then, of course, beats up more bad guys with a lead pipe, and like I said, he's kind of nutsoid now. Inside the old Monarch Theater, which becomes Zur-En'rhh's base, Batman tends to his wounds and learns about the true identity and purpose of the Batman of Zur-En-Arhh, which is basically another personality created by the Dark Knight after a run-in with Dr. Milo's gas fear weapon or whatever. So this goes into kind of like the Bob Kane era a little bit, like this flashback, which is interesting to see all this stuff connected to Batman's past. I mean, it's a great tribute to all the really interesting stories from the past. So, if you don't know who Dr. Milo is, he's the guy who made that werewolf creature in Batman the Animated Series, and then the dude was kind of rich and an athlete. It's not one of my favorite episodes, but that's who Milo is. Anyway, in his drug-filled dream that happens because of Milo, Bruce saw two Batmen, and one of them had superpowers, which was supposed to be him. Together, the two worked together to save the planet X, and Bruce got the Bat Radio device as a gift, which might be Batman's mind in general. I don't really know the mental implications of that, but I believe Morrison kind of hints the importance of the Bat Radio device, and why Batman in this persona even uses it, even though it's a broken tape recorder. Batmite informs Zur that he isn't real and only a safety block that Bruce has created so that Batman could operate. And I don't know about you, but if I came back and I was a completely different personality, that would kind of hurt my feelings with this, fictitious creature telling me, hey, by the way, you're not going to exist after a certain point because you're a safety mechanism, pal. I don't know how I'd live with that, but whatever. We learn that Dr. Hunt, during Batman's capture, has discovered this password and created it to use the Zur-En-Arhh method to break the Cape Crusader's mental blocks. However, what the good doctor doesn't understand is when you pry loose Batman from Wayne, you create something completely different, and it's not a good thing. Criminals now beware the Batman of Zur-En-Arhh, which is a Batman that has no limits. The streets are now his playground, and it's actually pretty brutal what happens to just random bad guys in the books. Now, according to the comic, Zur-En-Arhh Batman has a very scary bat voice. So think of it like Bale, except more terrifying, probably. And I really believe that because the text bubbles are in kind of wavy blue, and it looks like his facial features are shouting whenever he's speaking. So this guy is completely deranged, more or less. Batmite then tells Zur that Batman thinks of everything, and this other personality can save Gotham temporarily. While Batmite represents the Dark Knight's moral conscience and acts as a guide for Zur, preventing him from doing too many bad things, although he really can't hold this crazy Batman back all that much. Until, of course, Batman returns completely and the personality is either put back into stasis or is just replaced with Bruce coming back. I never really understood how that happens. So on the other side of Gotham in the junkyard, Robin calls the Batman of all nations for help since Nightwing, he learns, is missing in action. Knight and Squire answer the call and then contact their buddies and all head for Gotham, which is going to take a couple days because, they're not Superman. It's not like they can just appear. They got to find a plane, fly down there, find a parking space. It's going to take a while. So at the Dixon docks, Zur attacks two more members of the Black Glove. One guy looks like a Joker version of Caesar in white face paint, so a very bad knockoff. The other guy is like a Juggernaut ripoff, more or less. Meanwhile, Commissioner Gordon, who hasn't had enough, comic time, heads to Wayne Manor to speak to Bruce about the whole Thomas Wayne arc, only to fall into a deadly trap left by Dr. Hurt, who now resides in the Batcave controlling everything. He basically also tortures Alfred too, which, it's not really a cool scene, but he really doesn't like Alfred because he honestly believes that he's Thomas Wayne, that Alfred stole Martha, and that, whatever. But Alfred's like, you're completely insane. I know Thomas Wayne, and you, sir, are no Thomas Wayne. And when that young man gets back and sees you wearing his father's costume, you will pay. And Dr. Hurt's like, well, I'm Thomas Wayne, so I can wear whatever I want. And then, he attacks Alfred some more. So Zur then is back on the docks interrogating this guy named Roman, who's the Joker knockoff. And then Morrison lessens the tension from the book a little bit by having Batman pull out what looks like a tape recorder, a broken one, but this is the Bat radio device. And the criminal, when he sees the thing, he's like, "You're insane, that's just a tape recorder! You're more crazy than all of us put together!" And then Batman just smiles and beats the guy nearly to death with a baseball bat. This is what happens when you take Bruce Wayne out of the equation and Batman is the only personality left. You get chaos. You get no control. You get Batman. Unhinged, basically. Arkham Asylum is then taken over by the Black Glove, and Jet is brought there to die next to Nightwing, or at least that's the plan. Dr. Hurt speaks with the Joker and says he's a big fan of his work, and it's almost time for Joker to get his revenge. Then he shows these really rich guests to a bidding room. For tonight's entertainment, he has bids against good versus evil. A unraveling Batman versus his super arch nemesis, who's still recovering from being shot in the head. How he survived? It's never really said, but Joker is even more Looney Tunes now. So after the Joker introduction, Bat-Mite then tells the readers what everybody's been thinking. Why is Batman wearing this bright costume and charging headfirst into battle? And Zur replies with, "Robin wore colorful costumes like this to distract the bad guys, and it boosted his confidence." And Bat-Mite's just like, you're a temporary fix again until Bruce's mind resets. So, if you guys remember the show Chuck, think of like the Intersect rebooting. That's what Bat-Mite is waiting for, because this Batman even scares Bat-Mite. While Dr. Hurt makes his guests more comfortable, Joker is released from his cell and kills a whole lot of Black Glove members and disfigures one of them, just because he doesn't play fair. That's the punchline, kids. He's the Joker. Mite actually leaves Batman, saying how he can't help him anymore, meaning Bruce Wayne is either about to wake up or that Bat-Mite is a reflection of Bruce's, saneness. And by entering into the asylum, that mental strain is going to be too much for Batman's common sense, and hence Bat-Mite won't be able to speak over all the stuff happening in the Funny Farm and vanishes. But before he disappears, Zur asks Bat-Mite if he really is an alien from the fifth dimension, or you just some freaky figment of my imagination. And Mite says, "All imagination is from the fifth dimension," and then vanishes. Zur is then really happy, heads into Arkham, and cracks some more skulls. Meanwhile, everybody's watching this happen, like Hurt's guests, and they're like, "This isn't the Batman! This guy doesn't look cool at all. He's not wearing all black. He looks like a clown." And they try to leave, and then Joker crashes the party and dishes out his own party favors. Back at Wayne Manor, Gordon is still running this crazy death trap until Damian and Talia save him out of nowhere. And then Robin's like, "I want a Batmobile." Or, excuse me, Damian. He's not quite Robin yet, but he's kind of dressed like one. Also, Gordon calls him Robin for whatever reason. In Arkham, Joker takes over the show and taunts Batman through the loudspeakers, saying how, Batman now looks like a clown and is super vulnerable now. And Zur says, "I'm not vulnerable, I'm Zur-En-Arhh, Batman!" And Joker just laughs because he thinks this is hilarious, seeing Batman's fragile state of mind just completely falling apart. But Zur is racing to fight the Joker one final time, or at least that's what he thinks. Joker, when he actually comes face to face with this Batman, he says he's very annoyed that his Holmes looks like this now, and also that he shot him in the face. Again, you have to read the Son of Batman or Batman and Son storyline. I forget where it happens in it, but it does. So Joker and Zur fight, and he really doesn't care that Batman is Bruce Wayne. That really doesn't bother this version of the Joker. All he wants is for Batman to suffer, and he really wants to kill a Robin, so he's very upset that the, not the Court of Owls, the Black Glove group didn't supply Robin for him to kill so he could further mess with Batman. Because killing a Robin really unhinges Batman's mind even more, and that's what Joker wants. Joker wants a chaotic Batman, and, well, he doesn't get that, so he'll just have to settle for killing Batman's girlfriend. So he throws in some rose petals, black and red ones, and supposedly if they touch, they create like this nerve gas that will kill somebody instantly. So Bruce watches in horror as these rose petals hit Jezebel or something like that, and then he breaks through the glass, and he has a complete psychotic break again. And then Jezebel stands up, and she is actually the Black Glove. And you know what? I still have never really understood this at all. I don't understand this from a psychological perspective or from a writing perspective. It's just too confusing to me. But I guess if you break it down that she kind of wore down Bruce Wayne by letting somebody in, discovering his secret identity, and just kind of messing with him the past couple months, you know, that was the Black Glove dismantling Batman. Or I could be completely off, I don't know. Now the conclusion, which I'm sure all of you are curious to know about. So Batman wakes up in a coffin, buried alive, and Robin is elsewhere, fending off more Black Glove guys on some city rooftops. All you need to know is the Batman of all nations show up and save him, and then the Black Glove hold a funeral for Batman, and Joker stays around, which Jezebel's kind of like, what are you still doing around? And he's like, I would like to place a bet too. And the doctor says, you can't, because only members and rich people are allowed to do this. And Joker's like, well, I've had more money than I ever needed, I burned it all, and who's more famous than moi? And then he's like, but still, if you need me to become a member, he says, I think you need to lose some membership. And he walks up behind a guy and he's like, you look really tired. I think you need to relax. Why don't you have a break? And he snaps the guy's neck. And then, you know, everybody's just like, oh my gosh, what just happened? We just saw a murder. And they're all freaking out. And Joker's like, well, I'm going to put my money on Batsy. And don't worry, I'll come back to collect from each and every one of you. And they're like, what are you talking about? Behold the Bat radio device. And they're like, it's just a broken radio. And he's like, but look at it more closely. And they turn it around to see that Batman has completely rewired the thing to send not only a distress signal to his allies, but also lock down the entire base of Arkham. Elsewhere, Nightwing also wakes up after the drug has worn off in Arkham Asylum, and he stops himself from being lobotomized and meets up with Batman. Batman then crawls out of his grave, and he's whole again, one mind and one body. Of course, the Zur-En-Arhh personality is then gone. Joker then takes his leave and says he'll be back eventually, but they have their own problems to deal with because Batman has trapped everybody inside the asylum. It's time to enter into Batman's nightmare, which Joker laughs as he leaves. So Batman then confronts Jezebel and tells her everything about her that he knows, which shocks her because she's like, how could you know all this? And he's like, I'm Batman. And she's like, no, I broke you. Well, I have this to say to you. You're never gonna love again. And Bruce is just like, you can thank Alfred for the acting lessons. I never loved you. And then bam, out of nowhere, Nightwing jumps in, kicks her in the face, and then tells the Dark Knight, you need to slow down. And you look like you really could use a nap, Bruce. And Bruce is like, it's not nap time. It's crime fighting time. And then he leaves to go fight Dr. Hunt, or whatever, Dr. Hurt. So the rest of Batman's allies also stop different cell groups of the Black Glove, and they start to dismantle their empire. Joker jumps into an ambulance, and I love this scene, and as he's escaping Arkham Asylum on the bridge, Damian plows into him with the Batmobile and sends Joker careening off the Arkham Bridge. And Alfred is just like, Damian, don't drive angry, sir. And Damian's just like, I want to keep this Batmobile. You think Father would let me keep this Batmobile? And I just thought that was funny to see that, you know, there's like a little bit of edge in the book, and then Morrison adds a little bit of levity. So that is kind of cool. So basically what happens, there's a lot of fighting going on. Batman and Dr. Hurt square off, or father versus son. And Bruce says, you're not my dad, and leaps into a helicopter that then explodes. Nightwing is then shown on the final scene holding what's left of Batman's tattered cowl, and Talia's Man-Bat army then goes after Jezebel and murders her off screen or whatever. Damian then stays behind with Nightwing, and Nightwing says a battle for the cowl is coming. But that's it for this story. We'll have to talk about that another time if we ever get the Dick Grayson skin, because that's a great starting point. We'll be looking at the battle for the cowl and, of course, Batman Reborn. Anyway, thanks so much for taking the time to watch another Batman Arkham video. I hope you all enjoyed hearing about Morrison's take on the Zur-En-Arhh Batman. If you learned something new, let me know in the comment section below, because I love hearing from you. Or if you have another skin in mind that you would like me to look at next time, let me know. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family so they too can be informed. And well, until we meet again, God bless and happy gaming.